So
Yep. Yep.
3 minutes.
Hello, hello, Zipsters. This is Zip out here. Today we're going to do a live. I hope everyone is doing absolutely fantastic out there and you're having a great, wonderful weekend. Today I've got an exciting guest, Northern Living. And we're going to discuss crypto, what's going on in the markets, and just have a conversation about where we think the future is going with this, some exit strategies, and just take his innate knowledge of what he's specialized in, get a background on the history of how he came into the crypto markets, and just have some fun out here. Now, again, please be careful out there, again, and safe. I've noticed in the comments of the YouTubes here that the scammers are definitely out there, and they've actually taken my my personality and they've cloned it, so to speak, and they're trying to pull you guys into an environment to get into some trouble. So just avoid anything that in the comments that looks like a scam. I am not reaching out to you. I do not have a Telegram group. I don't have Patreon groups. I don't have any groups. This is the only platform and place that I talk to you at, along on X as well. I do have the X account out there that I post daily information out about crypto and the environments. But the bottom line is I am not reaching out to you, and be very, 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 very careful, please. But with that, let's do some introductions again, and we'll bring Northern Living out into the environment here. And hey, brother, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful there, Zips. Doing really good. I mean, it's Saturday. The sun is shining. You know, I woke up on the right side of the dirt, so everything is good.
Absolutely. Now, Northern Living.
Yeah.
That would mean that you're far north, and one of my bigger things I always tell everybody, we're going to meet on the most beautiful beaches of the world. Now, do you like the beaches, or are you more of a mountain man?
I like both. I mean, if it's a beach and it's natural, I'm into nature, so I do both. So I'm okay with the beach. Don't worry. But I'm also okay with a campfire and a nice scenery as well.
Yeah, that's me too. It's all about lifestyle. I love being up in the mountains. I love the beautiful beaches. I love it all, and I love experiences more than anything. And that's kind of why I saw this crypto capability and what it could bring as far as lifestyle for me in the future. And that's what we're going to try to get into today, ladies and gentlemen. And Northern Living. So how did you get into crypto? Can you give us some background of when you came in and what you saw with this asset environment?
Okay. Well, for a quick background, I mean, I've worked in the public sector. I've been in sales, but the last 15 years, I've been a manager for a large industrial supply company. I live in far northern British Columbia, Canada. So if anybody is looking where it is, find the Alaska Highway, and I'm along there. So a little ways up there. You know, I was always a believer in sound money. Like you know, when I was young, you know, I remember my uncle, who was fairly wealthy, saying, "Hey, you know, when stocks are going down, buy gold, and when gold's going down, buy." You know, he was doing. I thought, oh, okay, that sounds interesting, but never really put the two and two together. But later on in life, I thought, you know, hey, you know, let's start looking into silver, into gold, because you know, you see all the debt that's out there, and you're going, man, like, how can this continue? And you say, there's got to be some kind of safe play. So I started buying a little bit, and it even ramped up more, obviously, when we had the good old health event there. But what I noticed happened when I was buying, I was able to buy a little bit here and there, buy $100 here, you know, buy $50 here. But all of a sudden during that time, they ramped up the costs. They said, oh, no, minimums are now 1,000, minimum now 2,000 to buy. And I thought, man, I'm not going to, I mean, I understand it's supposed to be a flight to safety, but, you know, I still got to live day to day. I'm not going to drop that kind of dollars. And so my, you know, my dad, he, you know, I was talking with him, and he said, you know, you should look into crypto. And I mean, I wasn't living under a rock. I heard of Bitcoin way back when, in the 20 teens. Like I knew what it was. Even I think it would have been 2017, 2018. I bought like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin to go into some good old scam. So my experience initially was, well, it's kind of a scam and not really that, I don't really want to look into it. And I'm like, well, what's the catch too? Because my dad was always into, he's a more risk taker than I was. I'm a little bit more, I guess, even keel. And I thought, well, what's the catch, Dad? What do you want me to buy this thing for? Because I thought maybe he had some business interest again that he wanted me to get involved in. But he said, no. He says you can just buy it. I'm not talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about this thing called XRP. And I'm like, XRP, okay. What is it? So he tried to explain, this moving money and and cheaply, and it's gonna be the financial instrument. And mindful, my dad was 70 at the time. So it wasn't like my kid going, my kids are in their early 20s going, hey, Dad, you should look at this crypto thing. It was my 70-year-old father that started telling me about it. So I said, okay, well, because my dad is, I love him, obviously. And I'm like, you know what? Because I love you, I'll look at it just to make you happy. I figured I just, pretend to look at it and say, yeah, see, I did that. I don't want to see it and move on. But the more I looked at it, I thought, this actually makes a lot of sense. I started looking at different channels. I started looking at DIA and and a few other ones. I saw Zach Rector's. That's kind of how I came across Alan, the Staple Crew. I saw one of his interviews, and I thought, man, this Alan guy seems to have a pretty good head on his shoulders, and he seems to be very genuine. And that's kind of how I found Alan's group, and how I met you, obviously. But the more I looked into it, I thought, I'd moved money before cross border. Like, I've sent wired money to the States and other places, and I went, and I know, hey, yeah, 3-4 days, you're waiting to 5 days, and oh yeah, we finally got it, and it's okay, good, thank you. And I thought, man, like, this makes a lot of sense. You could, like, it's cheap, it's fast, and it's reliable. I mean, who wouldn't want to have this? That makes so much. It's so reasonable, right? Everybody would want to be able to do this. And so that's kind of that would have been around 2020, 21. So it was just as the court case was kind of coming into play. But I saw the fundamentals and I thought, something doesn't jive here. Why is there so much negative activity around such a wonderful product? Something didn't make any sense. And that's kind of how I got into XRP. That's kind of a quick Chilton Note version, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing the parallels that many of us have in this community as far as being introduced with regards to Bitcoin, because that was the big boy on the block, and that's kind of what everybody knew of. And thank goodness that the environment is maturing, but getting drawn in and going and getting scammed and stuff like that. And that's one of the biggest things I try to, for all the new folks coming in, to make sure that they understand what they're getting into, and not to be able to get scanned, and just be very, very cautious, and really just be non-emotional. Because it's funny when we're talking about money, which we're going to talk about today, and we're talking about assets, we tend to become so emotional that we make erratic decisions many times without really thinking things through and having that cautious, paused outlook. And in this environment, and in crypto, it seems to be amplified so much, much more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what I learned too is, when we were in this bear market, I got to the point that, man, it was so easy buying, so easy. Oh, it goes down, I'm going to buy a little bit. Oh man, this is great. It was, you actually was non-emotional at all. But I know what's going to happen is that when we start seeing things happen, I'm not going to say a price or whatever, but when we see some major appreciation, a lot of people are going to be scared to death, and I use the word crapping their pants, wondering what they're going to do and when they should sell, and that's going to be, I think, the most difficult part for everybody, to be honest.
Absolutely. And that's why, I try to provide more of a macro view, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But you have to have a disciplined plan, because and I've been through the bull market, and I've watched my portfolio climb all the way up and dive all the way back down. But it is so easy for that FOMO to kick in that you just, like you were saying, your thought processes change. And it's easy to say that you're not going to become that way. But
Yeah.
until you've experienced that,
Yeah.
you absolutely have to have that long-term strategic outlook. And now's the time to do it. When things are boring, like you were saying, the time is now before we get to that environment. And that's part of when you give your opening, it's about the community and
Yeah.
having people like yourself, having folks like Alan Staple and folks that have been through this and gaining that insight, that education and listening so that you are prepared for what is to come, so that you don't make the mistakes like maybe you made or I have definitely made.
Yeah.
And that's basically all I'm trying to do is get that information out. And it's very, very difficult to get people to understand that emotional part that's going to be coming here, I believe, by Q4 of this year, I think. But we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I think your time frame is pretty correct too, because you can see that the Federal Reserve is starting to do its pivot, right? You can see it coming, and once they start doing the interest rate drop, that correlation between printing money and interest rates always sends risk on assets, they call it, going up, right?
Absolutely. And so we have a quick question out here, and from Leo, he says, do you think the XRP price will go up before regulation and utility kicks in? So I'm going to I'll tackle this one first, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, Northern. But in my personal opinion, and I've been stating this throughout many of my videos, and believe me, I don't like regulation. I don't necessarily want regulations, but I do believe they are a part of the system. And until we have the regulatory clarity, and we know that they're working on the Genius and the Stablecoin Act now, and the Fit 21 and the framework stuff is coming right behind that. We need that for the big money, for the institutions, for the system that we currently have, for them to be able to fully come in and to mature this system, which then that's when the utility starts to kick in. Excuse me. And we start to see some more tokenization and things going on. But yeah, my opinion is regulation, and then the utility starts to kick in. And that's why I believe by Q4 of this year, we should have a lot of this substantiated. We'll have the SEC case behind us, which hopefully in the next 60 days, that's done and the nail's in that coffin. But what do you think, Northern?
I'm with you as well. I still think that there's going to be appreciation through sentiment as well, because I mean that's how Bitcoin goes up, is by sentiment. And I think because you look at most of the top 10 coins, you're going to see money come in anyways. In general, I see initially because of sentiment and just because of the printing of money and risk on assets going up. But I think you're right as far as seeing the true value of where it could go is when you're going to actually see those partnerships come out, like those NDAs drop and say, hey, yeah, we are working with them, and now XY bank or XY institution is saying, yeah, we are actually using this product to move value or money or tokenized assets, whatever it is, from peer to peer. That's when you're going to get some more FOMO and more people going in. And I guess I think stablecoin regulation obviously is going to get the masses more used to the thought process of having, tokenized money. This makes kind of sense, because there's going to be some sort of plan in the media to educate people very quickly on what a stablecoin is, right? So that's kind of my thoughts.
Yep, absolutely. And I think I do as well. I may have miscommunicated. I think the price is going to go up. I just think the larger prices that we think of when we know the asset of XRP specifically and some of these other ones, I think that larger price increase doesn't start to snowball until that full utility comes in, because of the regulatory guidance, I guess, is how I kind of see things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand, and Alan's done a very good job of this, is explaining the multiplier effect of what we see on market caps. Like an example, like I think of this morning, I think the market cap of Bitcoin is like 1.7 trillion, and people sometimes mistakenly think that there's actually 1.7 trillion dollars sitting there, which sounds like a lot of money, but
Yep.
you could divide that by 10 or 15, and that would give you the true dollar value that's actually physically sitting there. So I mean, it might only be like 200 billion dollars actually sitting in value there, not just at 1.7. So it really shows you it doesn't take a lot of money to move the market to get like dollars and get things moving in appreciation really fast. I mean, if you look at XRP, I think they said as it was like 122 billion. Well, there's only maybe 10, 11 billion dollars sitting there, right? So it doesn't take much to get the dollars to move, or get the market to move.
Yeah, that is phenomenal insight. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is key. And I think you're right. A lot of folks do misunderstand that, and great insight. Now, with regards to XRP, Northern,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're like me. I tell for I'm not a maxi in anything. I am diversified across the board. I am a maxi in utility-driven projects.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me to XRP. I saw the potential. I saw what this asset could actually do for mankind and where we were going to go, and the implementation, the changing of the financial system, because it's so old and crazy that we can't send money instantaneously like we can send email. And I went through the .com bubble, and I've seen all that transition. But with regards to XRP, how do you see this thing playing out once we get past the lawsuit and some of the big acquisitions that they've recently had, like Hidden Road and all the other acquisitions and the integrations that Ripple has going on behind the scenes? What do you think? We're going to kind of speculate, not on price per se, but the bigger picture of where you think this asset is going.
Well, I think if I look at Ripple, a lot of really, really wealthy people don't always understand how the banking system actually works. And I think Ripple probably thought that, hey, like us, when we started learning about it, hey, this makes a lot of sense. It's cheap, it's fast, it's easy. I don't think they realized the headwinds that they were going to run into as far as the banking cartels. And so they had to pivot. So obviously not spending money in the US going overseas, but hey, broker dealer licenses, custody, they've been putting all these other pieces in place like a little chessboard, preparing for something, because they want to make sure their hands is in everything. I mean, even this acquisition instead of Hidden Road, I mean, they're since 2022 they've been connected to Citadel, which is the second largest market maker in the world. So there's no coincidences. You can't make this stuff up. All the connections that are happening. I mean, what was it? What Powell there was interviewed by the Ripple representative for RLUSD. I mean, how do you make that up?
Yeah, that was Dr. Rajan. Yeah.
Yeah.
The head of the advisory board for Ripple and RLUSD. And that's why I say, I tell you, it's like we're watching a movie many times, and you could not develop a better script than what we are walking through right now. And that's just that's why I'm trying to bring the bigger picture to folks to see. Don't be so concerned with price go up. Look at the long-term outlook, because with what is going on and what Ripple is such a phenomenal company, and XRP, the technology, with what is going on in the future, is so much bigger than what we can even expect.
Yeah. And again, if you look at all these pieces and what they're doing, I can't see how it could fail. Maybe that's the right word. People are always concerned about things going to zero or losing money. I just can't see it failing. There's just too many things that have been put in place to make sure it doesn't fail. And I mean, the other thing about the court case, once the court case is done, and again we get some regulation, I think we're going to see. I mean, I don't like regulation because I know what it means. It means to manipulate, but I see you're going to have a lot of players that are in the background that are using Ripple technology per se, because like right now the Ripple net itself, the actual, they don't necessarily move value on RippleNet all the time. It can be just a messaging service for instantaneous messages. So there's a lot of companies that are using that right now, but they can't use the underlying token or utility just yet because of lack of regulation. Right. And so that's kind of, I think, where we're going to see that change is they're already using the program, they're using the software already. They just haven't integrated the actual settlement part of it fully. And that's kind of where I think we're going to see this major appreciation.
Yep, exactly. And other things going into the future, it's like everything is just lining up perfectly for, again, that's why I look at Q4. We know we're going to have the Fed wire go live. If the dates hold, the dates are dates. That's why I don't get locked on to dates. But in July as well is for full implementation of ISO 222 messaging. And then what is it, November for full implementation worldwide, I believe.
Yeah, they've been kicking the can a bit here and there, but yeah.
So yeah, and that's the bigger piece. And folks get, we sometimes we get stuck on one thing. And again, that ISO 222, that's just a messaging system, but it's upgraded and updating the financial environment so that money moves quicker. And
that's right.
I don't know if you have any insight on Swift or anything that's going on there. I keep hearing, again, these are rumors, ladies and gentlemen, but I keep hearing rumors about some possible integration with Ripple or something out there, possibly later on this month. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I've been seeing the posts. That's about it, saying about the 21st or something. That's like Monday. I'll believe it when I see it, because they're kind of polar opposites of each other. They're kind of competition. Could I see them maybe partnering, maybe saying, "Hey man, we got to get in the game or else we're going to be gone." I could see that happening, but until there's an official announcement from Swift and Ripple, I'm gonna I'll wait for that one to happen.
Absolutely. That's why I like to speculate a little bit and discuss it, but I don't hold anything, and been here long enough to know that dates tend to come and go. But if you understand the larger implementation and the absolute blessing for us to be able to be in this environment, in my opinion, and XRP is still, it's cheap. It's cheap at this price, and it's never too late to get in.
A good way to look at it is, they talk about Swift, but look at JP Morgan. They settle $10 trillion a day across 120 currencies or countries. So that's just one bank. Right? They're the biggest bank. They do everything. Obviously, they're the big dog. But that's actual dollars. That's not. So add a multiplier to that, right? So that's if it was a market cap. Right. So, these are just drops in the bucket, in my opinion. Right?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. What is your perspective on RLUSD and how that's going to be utilized as the volume, as we're seeing each and every week, the volume's kicking up more and more?
Yeah. Obviously, it's very good for the AMM projects. AMM projects. It's good for that. A lot of people get hung up on, it's competition for XRP, but whenever a transaction is done using RLUSD, a portion of XRP is burned to make that process happen. So you're deflationary to the actual XRP, so you're actually making it more valuable, even though you're using another, say, token to create value. But it's really going to be hand in hand with a lot of the stablecoin issuance that's going to happen. Like I said, I don't think it's competition. I think people they get a little bit, they don't understand the principle of how it's going to work on the ledger. But I think they're going to be very complementary of each other, not necessarily competition for each other. And I can see the use case going up more and more, where companies want to get into the US dollar and they can use a stable coin like that to make those transactions more efficient, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you said, it's an enhancement to the
Yeah.
environment and XRP, and and really going to open up more and more doors within the institutional environment, especially
Yes.
as the stablecoin laws get passed. And the old fiat system, I don't think paper money is going away anytime soon. But
No.
we are under and watching a digital transformation with regards to the financial system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I know up here in Canada ourselves up here, like we've had Interact like way before the States has had Interact. Like I mean, we've been paying with our phones for years now. So I mean, as far as like even up here, people are used to a lot of electronic money. And we email transfer money all the time to each other. Like it's pretty quick, because I mean, a lot of the banks up here have integrated Ripple's technology into their, like the CIBCs of the world, the Royal Banks of the world. So they're actually probably using all their technology already, but we don't know about it, and they're not actually settling with it necessarily the actual dollars, but they're using the messaging service. I talk to people and they say, hey, yeah, well, why do I need crypto when I just have my credit card? I mean, I go there and I pay, and it's instantaneous. It's bought. I said, well, the message is instantaneous, but the settlement's like months. Like that doesn't happen. The money doesn't move. The message moves, right? So,
yep. Yeah, that is a great point. And the other thing about credit cards is the fees that are incurred by either the small businesses or the businesses that are using it. Matter of fact, I was just looking the other day or watching something out there with, that Congress had all the big credit card chases, or Visa and MasterCard out there, and the profits that they make just on the surcharge and the fees is absolutely ridiculous. And that's part of the new system to make it more efficient, so that, these companies are not basically charging us as the consumer, because that price just gets passed to us from small businesses, generally speaking, to eliminate a lot of that fraudulent waste.
Mm-hmm. Well, a good example is American Express had the highest fees of any of the credit card companies, and so a lot of merchants stopped accepting American Express because it was so much more expensive. But I think in the last 2 years, their fees have come down in line with the other MasterCards and Visas of the world, because they were losing market share and they had to drop their fees. Right?
Yep, exactly. Very exciting times, and fantastic. Anyone out there, if you have any comments or anything like that, throw them in the chat and we'll answer any questions as we're going through this dialogue and conversation with Northern Living.
Yes.
But Northern, you mentioned AMMs and basically some of the DeFi capability long term, and right now we're talking about XRP specifically. We'll get into some of the other prospects that are out there and coins that maybe Northern likes and ones that I like. But with regards to XRP and some of the capabilities coming into the future with regards to DeFi and maybe Flare Finance as an example, I know Andros is out there already as a platform that you can go out to and do some of the DeFi stuff. But have you looked at or investigated, or do you do anything within the DeFi environment?
I've looked at it a little bit. I've played with it virtually a little bit, but I haven't actually put any money into it. I'm not a trader. I'm a buy and hold type of investor, and I'm looking more in the future, like the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 years down the road, where we have some products out there that are I'll say less risky. Obviously, less risk, less reward. But when you were going to see some of the appreciation that we're going to see, I don't think now's the time, unless you are really, really good. Like there's some people like Smoke and also Mr. Man. Like the guy knows his DeFi like there's no tomorrow. Like the guy's making a lot of money, but that's very far and few between. A lot of people or traders don't do that well. So I like to wait to kind of see when we get a little bit more, I guess not secure, because nothing's secure, but a little bit less volatility in that kind of space where you can make, decent returns. Because, who wants to, like, have this windfall and then suddenly lose it all because you're kind of like gambling. Right? That's my thought process. I mean, nothing against it. If you can do well at it, go ahead. But I'm more of a buy and hold and wait for the future kind of person.
Yep, absolutely. And I fall along that similar line. And like you said, there's going to be risk in anything. But what I try to tell
Yeah.
folks as I'm putting out these videos on Flare and stuff like that, it's more of a,
Yeah.
this is what's coming. Don't jump in and, try to start swimming with the whales right away. Dip your toe in, learn the environment and understand what is going on, because you absolutely can lose everything if you don't understand liquidity pools and then permanent loss and a lot of the environment with regards to the DeFi. I am excited with Flare and being able to see, staking. I'd love to be able to stake my XRP and still be able to hold it in my non-custodial wallet versus moving it, to another environment. I don't know if I went through the Celsius period and lost quite a bit in Celsius. Unfortunately, that was one of those lessons learned. That's part of why I'm putting the information out to newer folks, because we are so nascent still in this market and trying to get them not to fall into the bear traps that I fell into. But the bottom line, knowledge. Be very, very careful if you're in the, study the DeFi stuff now, because as Northern, what you were saying, in the next couple years, it's going to be more of a stabilized environment, I believe. And that'll be the time to where there will still be risk, but it won't be as risky as what it is right now without the liquidity being there.
Exactly, because the more volume of dollars in there, the less risk it is. It moves less because it takes more to move it. Right. But right now, because the liquidity is short, a good example, like there's some people that have bought like a meme coin and it's gone, their portfolio's gone to $1 million on paper or online, but they can't sell it because there's enough liquidity to sell to get the money out of it. Right. So that's just one example of how, it can look like, oh man, I made all this money, but if there's no money there or liquidity there to make the actual transaction or sale, you're just sitting on it. Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm with you. I think, there's a good adage. People say it all the time, but they don't always follow it. Is if it sounds too good to be true, it is. It's I've seen some liquidity pools of guys that are making 30, 40, 50% of their money. Fantastic. But then I also hear some of the horror stories where they've lost millions. Right. So it's, I think right now, in the infancy stage, let those kind of I call it the trailblazers do their thing, and then eventually, I think traditional finance or like the Fidelities of the world are going to have some sort of DeFi program that, basically people can invest in and get a decent return, but not have like these big spikes and swings that you see now.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and I fall pretty much in the same camp. I will dabble a small percentage, only because I'm trying to understand the technology side of it, just so I know how things work. But I would never recommend any novice or anyone that's new to the environment without a large amount of expertise getting into those environments, because I've seen, a lot of times the only stories we hear about are the millionaires that make it. They don't talk about the other multitude, probably 95% of folks that absolutely lose their butts on it.
Yeah. And people who are, trying to sell you a program, if they're making so much money, they would need to sell you a program.
Exactly. There's some key indicators there.
Because why would you waste your time making videos on YouTube every day trying to sell something if you're making millions and millions of dollars? You don't have to do that.
Exactly. That's why I have nothing to sell on this platform. It's just all free information, and hopefully folks take it. And if they don't, that's okay as well. We have Alex out here. He has a question just out of curiosity. How many XRP tokens would you think one would need to make serious money? Like 2 million plus? I know the value would greatly be impacted by each token's value. Would 1,000 be enough? I'll kind of take this and then your perspective, Northern, on this as well. That's a tougher question, Alex. I think whatever you can invest in, I believe in the digital asset XRP, it is going to go to higher values. What those values are, I don't know if it'll be $100, $1,000, or $10,000 in the future. So that's why my philosophy is just to DCA in when I have the available money. And everyone's life is different. Like Alex, I don't even know how old you are as an example, but age makes a big factor in that. If how much you need to have in order to make serious money. I don't know what serious money would mean to you. If you're talking about $2 million or more, then it's really a math equation. Let's just say XRP goes to $100. How many XRP do you need to make that $2 million? There's capital gains to be discussed there, whether you're talking about maintaining that money, taking $2 million off out of the, as clear profit or not. And we're going to get into some of that as we talk about exit strategies here in a little bit, but it's such a kind of like a loaded question. So I'm not avoiding your question, trying to give you a parameter of, if you are invested in XRP, in my opinion, you are way, way ahead of the curve. And there are so many folks that they don't know anything about cryptocurrency in general, let alone XRP. So you, my friend, if you're in this environment, you've already won, and just continue to educate yourself. Northern, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I think you are correct. I mean, if you're in the space at all, like you got your toe dipped into it, you're part of a small percentage of people that are going to do well. My philosophy, and again, it goes back to age. A good example, like my dad's 75 now, and he's got a pretty good decent bag of XRP. Well, if it hits, hits $10, right? Well, maybe his exit strategy is to sell 90% of it because he needs that money now. Right, like because he's gonna wait till he's 80 or 85 to start seeing some of the benefits of that windfall. I mean, it'd be nice if he wants to leave it all to me. Such a nice guy. He could do that. But yeah, it all depends. I mean, sometimes it's a really tough question because 5,000 could change your life, and I think I tell people, if you're going to sell, make sure that money that you sell from whatever, I don't care if it's HBAR or whatever you own, or even it's Bitcoin, make sure that is going to be life changing. If it's not going to change your life immediately and make your life way easier, then wait longer and hold longer. That's kind of how I look at it. I mean, if you can make a life change now, maybe reduce your stress level, reduce that 9 to 5, do other things you enjoy, maybe it's worth it to sell some, or maybe half of it or whatever. But depends on obviously how much you have. But again, I think that's my exit strategy is, hey, if it can change your life now and maybe hold some for the future, there's nothing wrong with selling as much as you think you need. That's my thought process. Because some people only want to sell 10%, some are going to sell 70%, but make sure it changes your life. That's my advice.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, and that is spot on advice in my opinion, but I would add to it is you have to look into the future and what capabilities and environments are coming. So instead of selling, because when you sell, you're going to have a taxable event, you want to look at it in the fact of, are there ETFs that are coming? Are there other capabilities like we were talking about with DeFi, to where you never have to sell your coins possibly, but you're able to earn a passive income from that and basically have dividends coming to you, if you would, that you could live on from a monthly perspective. So, that's why I always say I have more of a laddered approach. I don't plan on ever selling all of my XRP for sure. I know of the long-term capabilities, but I may ladder out at, I may sell 5% because maybe I need to pay off some debt, or I may pay down a house or the kids' college tuition, whatever the case may be. And that's why that question is very difficult to answer. But if you have that laddered approach, one, you have a written plan and it keeps you non-emotional. That is the key. Because when you see that accumulation start to come, automatically that I'm gonna call it the greed gene starts to kick in, and you're going to start to have all kinds of wild thoughts. I don't know, Northern, if you feel the same way with that, but I've been through that emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I like you talk about exit strategies and stuff. I mean, obviously you're a proponent of Caleb and Brown. I mean, I am, but unfortunately, I have to kind of look at a different plan now because as of end of June, they're pulling out of Canada. So just because of whatever's happening. So that I had a really good exit plan until I got that phone call, which was nice. The guy, they actually phoned me personally and talked to me and said, "Hey, this is what's going to be happening. We're sorry about this." But up until then, I can still kind of trade and I can take advantage of their programs. And so, I mean, like I have, like in talk about exit strategy, I've actually put in trades, preset trades that if I'm not around, they're going to happen, right? So if it hits this certain dollar value, I'm going to sell this percentage. If it hits this, I'm going to hit this one, so that I'm not guessing when it comes along, and I don't allow myself to, oh, well, I think it's going to keep going, so let's cancel that and let's maybe think about this. I put a strategy in place to ladder some stuff out if it hits a certain thing. And so that's kind of how I try to take some of my emotion out of the selling process.
That is an absolute excellent strategy. And yes, I do use Caleb and Brown. I have all the exchanges, Uphold, Kraken, Coinbase, and everything. I've just found that Caleb and Brown is the easy button. It's white glove service. I can call someone and talk to them immediately, email them. And the UI, the user interface on their platform is very easy and it's secure. But to Northern's point, the same thing. I have a strategy. I keep a little bit on there that I know that I just want to execute when it hits this level. And but that's the point. You have to define and have that extra exit strategy defined to keep those emotions down.
Yeah. And I have things written down as well. Like I have a sheet of paper that I have written down specifics and what this going to be. Again, like I said, I'm not selling all my stuff. Obviously, I have a stop where this is where it's going. This is the most I'm going to sell in as far as quantity, and then the rest is going to just sit there until we find a better way to make money off of it. But in the short term, I mean, obviously, I'm in my 50s, so I mean, I have been around the block a little bit as far as investing, and stuff. So I have other avenues where I can actually put that money in the traditional financial world to create value and create some income as well. So, you got to look at those, because I don't think the stock market is going away anytime soon. This is going to just probably change in the way they do it, like tokenization, etc. But we're not going to have no stock market just because crypto's coming along, right?
Absolutely. And we're going to get into some of that here in a minute. And I think Andrew had a question out here. I've been buying my grandkids XRP and putting it on a Nano S for them. Can you recommend a different coin, I think, that would be beneficial to them to ladder in life? And I think this is a good transition period. So we've been talking about XRP, and we both Northern and I are diehard XRP folks, and we see that capability and that and whatnot. But other coins and things that I believe in the future are going to have utility and are going to be used. I'm going to kind of go through some of mine, and then Northern, I'll let you dive in and kind of give your perspective. But I do have XLM as an example, because XLM is the kissing cousin to XRP, and they have different environments that they're concentrating on. But XLM, I believe, will do well in the future. I love HBAR. HBAR is one I absolutely do enjoy, and it's in my portfolio. Cardano, which, interesting enough, and you can speculate on this, Northern, as well. Seems like Cardano and Ripple, they have something going on in the background. I don't know what it is and what's coming, but something is being worked there. And then Cardano also has the Midnight side chain that they're working on, which I think, as XRP holders, and don't hold me to this, this is speculation based upon what Charles Hoskinson has said, that we're going to be in for an airdrop here. But if you're a Cardano holder, you're definitely going to get that Midnight airdrop here in the next couple months. I love Algorand. And XDC, I've been in I see the XDC comment out here. I've been in XDC since 2020. So I've been around before it was XDC, it was XDCE. So I've been in that environment for a while, and just basically holding and waiting for full implementation with regards to that environment. And we talked about Flare. I like Flare as well from a DeFi perspective. But Northern, what are your perspective on other coins and environments that you like, assets?
Yeah. Well, all the ones you mentioned, I have them as well. I'm like you. I'm a utility guy. I mean, I do. I mean, about 10% of my portfolio I have in BTC. So it's not like I hate Bitcoin or whatever. But it's because I guess the other part too is there's some out there that are very easy to buy, and there's some that are hard to buy that are really good projects as well. A couple I like. One is SHX, but it's difficult to buy. You have to use like BitTrue and some other ones that aren't like your non-mainstream. Like you're not Coinbase. It's not on Crypto.com. Like all these different exchanges, it's hard to find. Another one I like is Velo. Velo is again another payment processor. Again, very, very inexpensive. That one's easier to buy. That one you can get quite quickly. But I think it's like it's like 1 cent or something, or 2 cents or something like that right now. And at one time in the last bull run, it was like up over $5-6. So I mean, the upside potential for Velo is there. But again, hey, not financial advice. Just saying, just based on patterns and on previous cycles. You could see, especially a project like Velo, do some pretty good returns. That's kind of a couple extra that I added to yours. So
absolutely, and I didn't mention SHX, but I definitely like SHX as well. And that it's funny enough that has Ripple ties as well.
Yep.
With that environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can see the things that we're keying in on, really, they all stem from XRP and Ripple, and the broader environment of what is going on within the payment infrastructure. But SHX, you're right, it is difficult to get. The way I normally do it is I usually take my I'll buy XLM or USDC, and then I'll just swap it inside of the Lobster wallet.
Yeah, that's what I had to do too. I would use something expensive like XLM or XRP to move it to BitTrue and then make that transaction there. Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's just, again, it's not your traditional, like your Coinbase of the world where people tend to go, right? Like it's not just sitting there as an easier process, right? But
yeah, I don't. SHX, they've been so quiet too. It's like they're just not, and the development and what they have going on is so big, but it's been very, very quiet. It reminds me of some of the other
IBM too, right? I think IBM is a partner with them as well.
Yes, sir. They are. Yep. Yep. So again, not financial advice, but you got to go out and do your own research, ladies and gentlemen. But some good insight there. Now moving on, Northern, you had mentioned some of the TradFi markets and ETFs and such, and that environment and stuff, and maybe what you see going into the future with regards to Wall Street, and maybe even some of the plays that you're doing right now. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a little bit about that multiplier effect. And again, I was saying, if you divide the market cap by 15, that will give you a rough estimate of what value is sitting on a certain project. So it doesn't, especially with XRP, you might have, say, $12-13 billion of actual dollars sitting in there. Well, if you have all these ETFs come in, even if they bought $5 billion of actual cash in those ETFs, times that by, say, 15, and that would show you how much that market cap would move with just a small amount of money coming in, right? The dollar value of XRP would practically double just because of that small influx of cash. So these ETFs are going to be, I think, a bit of in the short term, it'll be a kind of a bit of a blip or a game changer to help kind of move this along and see some price appreciation. But again, in the future, the use case is really where the actual money is going to come. But in the short term, we'll see a bit of a bump in price just because of the demand for XRP. And basically, again, you won't need a lot of dollars to actually see quite a change in the market cap of that product. As far as traditional stuff, ETFs, I mean, really, an ETF is just a basket of products. So it could be a basket of stocks, it could be a basket of currencies, or it could be a basket of currencies and stocks, and they could be ETFs of ETFs. But it's right now, myself, because I'm like everybody else in the world, in the States, you have a 401k that you're putting into. Up here, we have RRSPs, retirement savings plans. I'm lucky that I get to choose how I invest my money. I don't have to have like here's your three boxes. Here's high risk, here's medium risk, here's low risk. I can actually choose. And so what I invest in myself, this is me personally, I invest in stuff called covered call ETFs. And so what they are is a covered call ETF means that the underlying asset has to be held by the institution to sell. And so as an example, how it works is a covered call is basically just a contract to buy. And how they make their money is on the fee. So say I had a stock that was $100, and I went and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna say make a contract with you for $110. If it hits $110, I will sell you the stock, but you have to pay a fee for that opportunity." And what they do also is they only sell about 30% of the value of their stocks at any given time. So there's always 70% value sitting in the fund. And what happens is if it gets to $110 and you sell, the fund makes some money, but the other person makes more money. Or if it goes $120, they make a lot of money and you lose money, right? Because it's gone higher than what you want. If it doesn't get to the $110, well, then the person who want to do the contract's up, they don't exercise it, and you still make the fee. So that's kind of where the yields come from. So it's not really the buying and selling, it's basically someone on the other end gambling, hoping it's going to hit a certain value, and you hoping that it's not going to hit that value in a certain amount of time. So if it's really volatile, they'll have shorter contract windows, like say 15 days, 20 days, 30 days. Or if it's not volatile, they could have a contract out there for 2 months if they wanted. But the whole idea in this game is they really make their money off the fees, not off the buying and the selling of the actual assets, as if that makes any sense. And some of them, to be honest, some of them pay 7% yield, some pay up to 12% yield, depending on the volatility of it. But for the most part, what you find in these kind of paying covered call ETFs is you don't get a lot of upside. You get a lot of income paid to you monthly, but you don't get a lot of appreciation because most of the money is getting paid out via the yield. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that I do with my retirement plan, because hey, I want to get yield. That's the name of the game, right? And that's kind of why they want ETFs, is they want yield, right? So helpful, hopefully.
Yeah, that is a great perspective and a larger macro view of what is going on out there. And that's why it's fun to talk to folks like you and other individuals, because there are so many different ways to leverage and make money. And, and that's, gaining knowledge from other people. That's how you learn. I don't have all the answers to everything, just as you don't. But you take different concepts and different practical ways of what other folks are doing, and you go, hey, I can try that. And maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. But no, that is phenomenal. And speaking of the ETFs, we see that the first XRP one go pro shares looks like it'll be live hopefully by April 30th. Speaking to what you were talking about, that initial volume as these ETFs come out. And I think XRP right now, I think we're up to 18, I believe. I mean, they just keep on adding them, but we see all these larger institutions, and the only one that we haven't seen the big boy yet, BlackRock. We don't know what's going on with them, but
and that's interesting play, because that doesn't make any sense. There's something going on, because usually I think because I mean even Alan talked a little bit about it this morning. If you guys haven't seen video from Alan Staple Crew, I would suggest you look at it because he talks about that marriage between Citadel and BlackRock, and how I wonder what's going on, why they haven't got into the XRP ETF realm just yet. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. And like he said, please go out and Staple Crew. Alan is always putting deep macro information. I mean, he sees the bigger economic picture and what is going on, and he has such a phenomenal way just to illustrate that. And just as he's speaking, you can just see it. He's painting that picture perfectly. For that larger vision of what's going on. And that's why he's even said, and the plan is not to sell these assets. The plan is to leverage the assets in the future from a tax-free perspective, which can lead us kind of into the discussion of exit strategies. Yeah, we kind of hit on a little bit, but as part of that exit strategy, that's why I think Northern, and what I'm saying is, the plan is not just to get into these environments, and when price go up, you sell out of everything. Because if you sell out of that asset, you're pretty much done with it. And with the way that things are moving, the prices are going to go up, and they're going to go up, and you're not going to be able to buy back in at a decent price. But again, the point is to hold on to these assets and find ways to leverage them in a tax-free environment. You're going to be able to take your crypto, your XRP, HBAR, whatever it is, and you're going to be able to take loans on that and lending. And that's how big money utilizes the environment. I'm doing a video, Northern, right now on kind of a bigger exit strategy purview. And I like to use insurance to maintain my capital, and I put it into my insurance. But there's so many different plays out there with regards to exit strategies. But the one premise that I'm trying to put forth is I would not recommend, and again, not financial advice, selling all of your assets because what's coming in the future is absolutely going to be huge. Northern, what's your take on that?
I would agree. I mean, we kind of, I mean, we had a conversation before. We're kind of on the same page on a lot of stuff. Sometimes we say, "Oh, well, yeah, we just heard people say the same thing over and over." But I agree with you because I think we have too many big players. This is just maybe a tangent a little bit off of that, but I'll come back to it. In the past, all these 90% drops that we saw, or 80% drops, I think are going to be a thing of the past because you have too much big money telling their big money friends to buy into these products. They can't manipulate it and let it drop that 80% again, or else heads would roll. I can see it, like, hey, when a stock market corrects 15, 20, even 30%, they call it a crash. I can see some of that happening, but trying to guess that of when that bottom is going to be, or if there is going to be a bottom, I mean, it's very difficult. There's an old adage is you don't lose any money till you sell, and if you stay in the market long enough, you get those returns, or you're in the market for those best days anyways. But I think you're right. I mean, that's how money makes money, is they borrow against what they have. But the key is, after you borrow that money, you have to make sure that money that you borrow is working for you to pay back, because you're going to be some interest on it, whether you're doing infinite banking like you're talking about, where you're paying yourself the interest. There is a cost. So you have to find a way to make money with that borrowed money so that it pays for that, that loan or whatever you're taking, which is tax free, right? So that's kind of the hard part. Is it's good to be able to borrow it, but you better have a plan on where it's going to go to make money for you to pay back that loan that you're going to take at some point against it, right?
Exactly. What you're speaking to is the velocity of money, keeping that money moving, because that's how money works. The more you move that money into appreciating assets, and don't take this wrong, whoever's out there listening. There's nothing wrong. If you want to go buy a Lamborghini, that's great. But that Lamborghini, is it going to make you money? If you buy the Lamborghini and you're an influencer and you're utilizing it in your business, and it's then compounding and making you money on what you leveraged there, absolutely perfect. But big money generally does not go out and buy things just to buy them. They're leveraging that money to what Northern was talking about, to keep that velocity moving so that money continues to make more money. And that's how true wealth is created, in my opinion. And that's why I always say, I'm not here to get rich. I'm here to create generational wealth. And that's why part of that exit strategy, as Northern said, is not to sell all of our assets. It's to build that generational Rothschilds, if you would, kind of environment to where my grandkids, their grandkids, they have this money and they have the philosophy, the foundational money principles to carry that forward for years and years. And I think that's the key. Wouldn't you say, Northern?
Yeah, and that's the hard part, is because we've been, our whole lives we've been, basically told to get a job, work hard, and then hopefully retire, and then that's your lot in life. Whereas the rich, the rich are highly leveraged. Everything they have is borrowed. They don't actually own anything technically, and it sounds like an odd concept, but everything they have is financed. If they have $1 million in the bank, well, everything has been borrowed against that. It's borrowed money against borrowed money against borrowed money. It's just compounded on top of each other. And they don't use their own money to buy anything. They use other people's money. So that's how they do it. I mean, they don't use their own money. They use borrowed money or money. They go to the bank and they get a loan out because they're not using their own money. Right, and that's how they leverage it.
Exactly. I heard a good illustration the other day talking about Elon Musk, and obviously we know he has a lot of money, and other folks have money, but basically he doesn't have $1 billion sitting in the bank account. He has billions of dollars that are within Tesla stocks and all the other companies that he has. He takes those stocks, he goes to other high capital individuals, and he goes, "Hey, I would like to leverage a loan from you. I'm going to put up as collateral my Tesla stock." And that's what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be able to, in my opinion, you're going to be able to take your digital assets, your XRPs, your HBARs, whatever you may have, and you're going to be able to leverage those as collateral to go do other things with, to create businesses, to buy other appreciating assets.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is to say, it's people know a little bit more about real estate as well. If you went and you said, okay, I have to borrow $500,000 to buy this home. Well, if your interest is say you're paying 4% interest on that money to borrow it, but that piece of real estate is paying you 10%, well, you're gaining that 5% of income and 5% of value, and you're paying back the loan anyways. So that's kind of how you got to make sure that whatever you go into, whatever that cost of borrowing is, you're making more money than what the cost of the borrowing is. And that's another like key factor you have to look at when you do this type of borrowing and buying and trying and create assets, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And phenomenal points, guys. If you have, ladies and gentlemen, have any questions out there, throw them into the comments as far as exit strategies or crypto in general. We're here today with Northern Living, who has an absolute wealth of knowledge. I've noticed, Northern, a lot of my, looking at the analytics and stuff, a lot of my audience is of our age group, and which is interesting, to say the least. But I think it's also because we've gone through a lot of life here, and we've seen a lot of cycles, and we've seen ups and downs, and we've learned the hard way many times about money and how to utilize money.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it took a while to learn. Oh, well, hey, every time, it seems like every 4 years, oh, there's some sort of crisis that kind of happens. Oh, wait a minute. And you start looking through history and you're like, wow, every time there's a refinancing of the debt, there seems to be like a whole bunch of money printing, and things go up and then it comes down, and it goes up and it comes down. And you're like, I'm seeing a pattern here. But it took, years of life experience to look back and go, oh, hey, yeah, I can see patterns here. And obviously you talk to smart people and they say, yeah, this is, because right now there's a lot of people in this space that are panicking that why hasn't it moved? Why hasn't things moved? Like normally it moves already. Well, it will. There's always a pattern, and just look for that pattern to come, and you'll know. It comes every time. It just can move a little bit. Just be patient. It's coming, right?
Yeah, and that is the key sentiment that I try to put out. Just patience is the key, and if you're looking to get rich overnight, I don't believe that's going to happen. I mean, it can if you get in the right meme coin, sure, but being rich is completely different than having wealth. And what we're discussing right now is having long-term wealth and the capability to absolutely change your life. And that looks different for everyone. And everyone just basically again, it goes back to that exit strategy and having a very refined exit strategy to know what you're trying to get out of this environment. But great stuff there, man.
Well, a good example. I just want to talk a little bit about taxes. I mean, obviously, I don't know what. I'm not familiar with the tax system in the United States. Obviously, I mean, because I don't live there. But in Canada, a lot of people don't realize is that if you could make up to $70,000 per year in dividend income, as long as it's Canadian based, and pay zero tax on that. And I mean, you could plug that into any. If you're in Canada and you're listening, you find Wealthsimple or any taxation program, and you put in there dividends, eligible dividends, and you put in $70,000, and I think maybe the taxes are $500 or something really, really minor. So there are ways to use the tax system to your benefit, but it takes education and knowing. I didn't know about this until probably 4 or 5 years ago. Right. And then that's kind of helped change my mindset about, well, maybe there are some good products that are fairly safe that you could make money with. I mean, say you only made 4% on your money. It's really safe, but it's a dividend and it's safe. Well, that 40,000, say it's $40,000. Well, all that $40,000 is in your pocket. You're not giving 10 away or 5 away or 8 away to the government. That stays with you. Right. So there are ways, again, like I said, to leverage, the tax system to your benefit that people don't know about.
Phenomenal nugget for our Canadian brothers and sisters. That is absolutely great information. So hopefully, if you didn't know that, you do now, and you can start to look in that environment again. And that's why I wanted to bring Northern on today and bring other people on, because there are so many different facets to this game, this money game that we're going through. And my perspective may not fit your perspective, and where you are may not fit Northern's perspective. But if you can gain one thing, and what I've learned, and that's why I try to ingest so much knowledge from folks that are well ahead of where I am. If I can just gain that one nugget, that may be the one thing that I needed to absolutely catapult me to the next levels. And that's what it's about. It's about learning, education, and growing a community that absolutely resonates together. And all of you smart folks out there, I know we have many folks in the audience and within the community that, I look to as mentors. And we mentioned Alan Staple, and there's other influencers out there that just are a phenomenal amount of knowledge. But you just got to be willing to listen to it. And then the key is action, because if you don't have action afterwards, if you just have innate knowledge, there's a lot of professors in a lot of colleges that have a lot of knowledge, but there's not much action that they have actually practically done. So that's the key. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Northern.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, knowledge is the key, but you're right. Knowledge without action is it doesn't create wisdom. Right? You don't get wisdom from just learning something. You get wisdom from putting into practice, right? And so, I think about. I mean, I have my daughters are fairly young. I mean, they're early 20s, but they don't. I talked about crypto. They don't want to hear about crypto. I mean, which is really, it's odd. I mean, their dad's in it, their grandfather's in it, but they're like, they're kind of like, whatever. They're doing their school thing, and they're going to get that job, and I think once we see some appreciation here, and those family members or those friends that you tried to talk to, hopefully they'll see some of the picture that you've been talking about for a long time. But I mean, obviously, if it's my daughters, they're going to benefit anyways, not necessarily my friends. I've had a couple friends get invested, which is nice. But yeah, my daughters will indirectly will benefit. But hopefully they'll learn some education out of this for their future, so that they know how to use money properly when I'm not here anymore. And that's kind of the key that I would like to put down to them, hopefully in the future.
Yes, sir. Absolutely excellent. We have Leo in the comments. Do you see a super cycle? And I think, Northern, you touched on this briefly. And I actually made a note to go back to it, but you were talking about the volatility in the market and a lot of that stabilizing. So I'll give my perspective, and then I'd love to hear yours for Leo as well. But so I do think, as to what Northern's point was, I think the volatility is going to decrease and become more like the traditional market finance, if you would, from a volatility as far as the large swings, especially as large utility kicks in. And as Northern was saying, with all these institutional players coming in, I think the volatility definitely decreases. I think it will still be there, just like it is in the traditional markets. Because honestly, some of that's manipulated, and that's how they make more money. But with regards to a super cycle, yeah, I think we're getting. That's why I keep pointing towards Q4. I think by the end of this year, I think this cycle is going to be bigger and better than what we have seen in the past. And I also think that the traditional 4-year cycles that we have been used to in this digital asset crypto environment are going to kind of go away, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on that, Northern?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I think that this is going to be, if you're talking maybe XRP specifically, I'm thinking, I have a feeling we're going to see that kind of that 2017 kind of cycle. Like, that's my thoughts. I think they're going to start pumping money to the market like there's no tomorrow. And you're going to have now these institutions come in that can publicly say they're involved, but we know they've been involved in the sidelines or behind or through whatever shell company that that they own or have, where they can invest in this. Because if you look at the markets, you can tell it's manipulated. Even the crypto market, I mean, they almost carbon copies of each other if you put them on top of each other day by day, unless you have a decoupling by one from some fantastic news. But I think there is going to be an inflated super cycle this round for all of them, per se. Just have to wait for it. Excuse me. But again, I'm with you. I think that because there's too much, it's going to be too mainstream for people, or they're going to be advertising it for mainstream. They can't allow it, they can't manipulate that much volatility into it anymore. They have to have it a little bit less risky on the downside. I still think there's way more upside coming in the future, but as far as those swings down, I think you're not going to have that 80% drop. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, hey, we're just speculating, but I think that if I was BlackRock and I was telling my clients, yeah, this is a really good play, you should buy this, and they drop $4 or $5 million into it, and it drops to 200,000, they'll be knocking on the door. Or people be going out of windows, that's the might happen. So that's why I'm in that camp as well, as I don't think you're going to have the drops like we've seen in the past.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that. I'll tell you what, it's just the most exciting time to be alive. And Northern, I appreciate you today. We're probably coming to the end of this stream. I don't want to keep you all day, because I know this is your Saturday off as well as mine, and we're just normal folks, and we have jobs as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's beautiful outside, so I want to go for a ride on my motorcycle. So.
There you go. It's about enjoying life, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to get out of here, and we're going to go enjoy life. And again, I hope you got something from this today. I know I did. And I appreciate you, Northern, for coming on here. And maybe we'll get you back again as the as we get deeper into this cycle and things get more exciting and we start to see the price increases and we get past the SEC lawsuit, the ETFs start dropping, and we'll definitely get you back. But ladies and gentlemen, everybody have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Please be safe, be smart, and again, stay away from the scammers and the comments and everything else that's out here in this environment, and just protect yourself and go have fun with your loved ones. But with that, this will do it. Zip and Northern are out.